so he was right. I do have a couple of announcements before. Well, actually, I guess just one. Next Saturday, we're going to a thing called The Nightmare. Oh, have you guys heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Okay. So it's I don't know how else to describe it except for a haunted house, but it's not a haunted house. It's put on by a church. Yeah, it's awesome. I went last year with Lindsay and Landon, just us three, because our church didn't go. 2 years ago, our church went. But it's kind of, I don't know, it's a haunted house, but it's not full of like ghosts and stuff. It's full of real life situations that are really, it's really scary. I'm just letting you guys know. It's big. Last year when I went, we walked in the door and Lindsay, you guys know Lindsay, right? Okay. She collapsed to the ground. Landon and I had to drag her through the whole thing. So she was on the ground. We had to drag her. She was so scared. It was really scary, but it was so fun. I love it. So I have permission slips for you guys. If you guys would like to go, let me know at the end. Yeah, I'll get it to you guys. I just don't want to get it to you at the beginning because I know you'll probably lose them. I would. So at the end, I will have you guys come up and get one if you want to go. I just wanted to let you know before we get started, and we can talk a little bit more about it then. Okay? Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. How many of you guys are interested in going? Just raise your hands. Okay. All right. Perfect. That's great. I just want to make sure you guys are interested in going, so that like 2 people don't show up. Yes, I was afraid with bowling, but you guys showed up and you had fun, huh? With bowling, if you went. All right.
Yeah, that was fun.
I'm glad you had fun. We will. Yeah, we're gonna do more stuff. All right. So to get started, I'm back speaking. Still terrified of it, but I'm still gonna do it because I love you guys. I love you guys. I told my dad it'd be a lot less scary if it was just you guys, because the adults scare me. Oh yeah, all the adults, cover your eyes. No. Okay, so you guys know it's October, right? What happens in October?
Halloween.
Halloween. I love Halloween. I love dressing up for Halloween. I love watching Halloween movies. Not just like the Halloween movies like Michael Myers, but Halloween movies altogether, like Sweeney Todd or something. Okay. But I love Halloween movies. I love Halloween. And I decided for the next few weeks that we're going to talk about something that comes along with October and Halloween. What's one big thing you guys think of when you think of Halloween? Jack-o'-lantern, sure, but I couldn't find that in the Bible. So, clowns. I also couldn't find that, so that would be hard to talk about. Candy canes. I think of candy corn. I like candy corn. No, the big thing. It's a big thing. When you think of Halloween, think of the nightmare that we're gonna go to. Scary stuff. Which means
Ethereal.
ethereal. It's fear. You guys are trying to be too complicated about this. Ethereal, Gabe. Come on. Okay. So I decided we're going to talk about fear, and we're going to talk about a couple people in the Bible, or stories in the Bible where people had to face their fears. Because while, it's Halloween and stuff, I kind of wanted to incorporate it, but I wanted to do it in a way that you guys could actually learn something. So for this week, I'm going to be reading from Acts 9, 1 through 18. And I always read from my phone because we don't have the version of it I like on the computer here, so I have to read on my phone. Okay. So settle in, I'm going to read this to you guys. All right, pay attention. Are you paying attention? I believe you. All right. So it starts kind of in the middle of the story, but I'll give you some background after this. So, meanwhile, Saul was uttering threats with every breath and was eager to kill the Lord's followers, or disciples. So he went to the high priest. He requested letters addressed to the synagogues in Damascus, asking for their cooperation in the arrest of any followers of the Way, which was what they called themselves. The first church was called the Way. Followers of the Way he found there. He wanted to bring them, both men and women, back to Jerusalem in chains. As he was approaching Damascus on this mission, a light from heaven suddenly shone down around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" "Who are you, Lord?" Saul asked, and the voice replied, "I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do." The men with Saul stood speechless, for they had heard the sound of someone's voice, but saw no one. Saul picked himself up off the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he was blind. So his companions led him by the hand to Damascus. He remained there blind for 3 days and did not eat or drink. Now there was a believer in Damascus named Ananias. The Lord spoke to him in a vision, calling, "Ananias." "Yes, Lord," he replied. The Lord said, "Go over to Straight Street to the house of Judas. When you get there, ask for a man from Tarsus, I guess that's how you say it, named Saul. He is praying to me right now. I have shown him a vision of a man named Ananias coming in and laying hands on him so he can see again." "But Lord," exclaimed Ananias, "I've heard many people talk about the terrible things this man has done to the believers in Jerusalem. And he is authorized by the leading priests to arrest everyone who calls upon your name. But the Lord said, 'Go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles and to the kings, as well as to the people of Israel. And I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake.' So Ananias went and found Saul. He laid his hands on him and he said, 'Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus who appeared to you on the road has sent me so that you might regain your sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit.' Instantly, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he regained his sight. Then he got up and was baptized. Afterward, he ate some food and regained his strength." Okay,
So they went.
we'll get there, Gabe. So, do you guys know who Saul was, first of all, before I...
Paul.
Paul, right? No, you're right. So Saul was this guy that was really high up there in the kingdom. He was in with the high priests of the kingdom or whatever. And they sent him out because he wanted to go kill all the Christians, because they believed that the Christian faith was going against their faith and that they needed to be stopped from spreading it. So Saul was like the leader of killing Christians. So he would go out and he would just kill all the Christians, and he was on his way to do this exact same thing when something happened. Do you guys remember what happened? He went blind. A real bright light. And what else was with the light?
The voice.
A voice. It was the voice of God, actually. And the men that were with him were scared because they heard this voice and they were like, "There's nobody here." So what is it? Does that sound kind of like a ghost story or something to you? I think it'd be pretty scary, you know? To be just, he's just walking and minding his own business. Of course, he's going to kill Christians, but you know. So he's just walking along, and this light comes out of nowhere, this voice comes out of nowhere with no body, and starts talking to him and blinds him. So then his men have to take him all the way to Damascus. So first I want to talk about Saul's fear. If a light came out from the sky right now and blinded you, would you be a little bit scared?
Yeah, I'd be scared.
A little bit? Yeah, I think I would be scared. What about if you were sitting in your room and a voice started talking to you and there was nobody there?
Or in the story.
Yeah, and Moses, when the burning bush and it starts talking to him, that's a little scary. I would be really afraid, especially when I got up from all this happening and I couldn't see, right? Saul was afraid, but there was someone else that I think was a little bit more afraid. Do you guys remember the other guy in the story? It started with an A. His name's Ananias. And Ananias was really minding his own business. He was just, I don't know where he was. He was probably sitting at home, you know. And yeah, and God says, "Hey, Ananias, I got something for you to do." And Ananias is like, "Okay, yeah, what is it?" And he says, "Oh, you know Saul that kills all you guys? You know? I need you to go pray for him. Just go say hi to him for a little bit." And Ananias is like, "I don't think so. He kills people. He kills people like me. If I'm going to go in there and pray with him, he's just going to have me killed right there. He has the authority to kill me if he wants to." But did Ananias let that stop him? Okay. Did he let that stop him? Amos says no. No, he didn't. He got up and he went to Saul. a little more background on Saul. He was going and persecuting all the Christians, and he hated Christians, Christianity, and God himself. But God knew that his destiny was bigger than that. He says in the scriptures that Saul was his chosen one to send his word out to the Gentiles. Do you know who the Gentiles are? Kind of. The Gentiles are us, not the Jewish people. I don't think anybody in here is Jewish. So back in this time, Gentiles weren't taught the word of God. It was only the Jewish people that had this opportunity. So Paul was God's chosen one to go out and preach to people like us. Saul, is the reason that we are here today. So God knew that his destiny was greater than what he was making it, and he made an extreme situation in Saul's life so that he could be changed into Paul. Sometimes when something crazy happens in our lives and we're like, whoa, where did that come from? I don't think we've ever been like kind of blinded, by a random light. But we've all had something come into our lives and we've been like, I can't handle this. This is too crazy, right? But most of the time, things like that change your perspective on life and change your perspective on your path. And so sometimes God will use those extreme situations and those hard times that we go through to make us into who we're supposed to be. Sometimes that fear is the thing we have to get through until we can reach the other side and we can reach the destiny that he has for us. Because Saul could have easily been blinded and gone back to the kings, right? Gone back to the priests. He could have been blinded and had his men take him home and had their doctors try and fix his eyes and everything else, and he would have stayed blind. He was afraid. Yeah, he probably would have got worse, you're right. He was afraid because he was blinded by a random light and because he heard a voice. But what did he do when he was afraid? Do you guys remember? He didn't go to church. He started praying. He was praying to God to deliver him. Now, wait a second. Saul was praying to God to deliver him, but Saul was killing Christians for telling other people to pray to God to deliver them. That's a little weird.
He's a hypocrite.
Well, I think, this is my point, Gabe. You're right. This is my point, that God had to take such an extreme measure with him because he knew, leaving Saul to his own devices, he was going to stay Saul. He was set in his ways, he was in a good position, he was probably making lots of money, and he loved killing Christians, he loved what he was doing. And sometimes, God takes us out of our comfort zone. He yanks us out of our comfort zone into something extreme that we don't really want to be in, but we end up there anyway, and we gotta kind of be like, okay, here I go. You gotta step forward anyway, because if you stay there, you're gonna stay blind, like Saul was. If you stay in your, sometimes it's gonna be uncomfortable. Me being up here, this is not comfortable. This is not comfortable for me. This does not come naturally for me, but it's something that I have to step through until I can get to the other side of where God's taking me. So we know that Saul was scared. Saul, you can kind of interchange those, but right now he's Saul. We know he was scared because of the situation he was in and the extreme events that took place, but so was Ananias. Ananias was a prophet of God. Like I said, he was minding his own business, probably sitting at home, having a meal, watching TV. It was like the Flintstones, probably. No, he was just minding his own business, and then God comes in. What does he do to Ananias? He just wrecks his world too, doesn't he? I don't think Ananias was sitting there thinking, one day I'm going to pray for Saul. He killed my friend last week, but I'm going to pray for him. I don't think he was thinking that. The thing is, God doesn't necessarily have us do things that are on our minds to do. What I mean by that is we can't even imagine the things that God would have us do in our lives. We can't imagine where He's going to take us and what we're going to do with the gifts He's given us. And if He leaves it up to our minds to figure out what we're going to do next, we're all going to end up like Saul. We're all going to be stuck and blind and have nowhere to go. So sometimes He will put you in an uncomfortable situation because He knows that's your growing place. And He knows that that's just something that has to happen. Every single one of us, that's something that has to happen if you want to grow in God and if you want to grow to be who you're supposed to be and who you were made to be. You're going to have to be uncomfortable sometimes. Now, the kind of uncomfortable that comes with doing what God tells you to do is not the same uncomfortable as stepping out on your own and having no idea what's happening. When God tells you to do something, He opens doors and He sets your path. And He shows you the way to go. You're not on your own at that point. Sometimes it feels like that, taking that step of faith. But there's a difference. And when you get to that point, you'll know the difference because God spoke directly to Ananias. And God said, this is what I want you to do. And Ananias kind of argued with him for a second. But ultimately, he must have had a lot of trust and faith in God because he didn't even say, no, I don't think I will, and have God ask again. He just said, this is Saul, right? That's killing people, and I'm supposed to go pray for him? But okay, I'll go. You know, he was scared. But he got up and he went anyway. If Ananias had never gone to Saul, despite his fears and worries, Saul would have remained in his own fears. We forget about Saul for a second. He was sitting in a room blinded by something he couldn't even see that blinded him. He was still blind. He was still scared this whole time waiting for Ananias to come. He didn't know he was waiting for Ananias to come. But he was waiting for something to happen because he knew something had happened. He couldn't do anything on his own anymore. Sometimes God sends people to us to help us out of those dark places. Saul was praying to God to get him out of this place, but did God come down and pick him up and wipe his eyes and make him... No? He didn't do that? Okay. He sent Ananias, another servant of his, so that Ananias could also gain from this situation. If God wanted to, He could come down and heal everything and fix everything. But He has calls on people's lives that they're supposed to do these things, that they're supposed to be greater and better. And if He were to come down and fix everything, we would never grow. And sometimes that's hard to comprehend because we go through things that we wish we didn't have to go through. Through deaths and through depression and loneliness and anxiety. But whenever we get through those things and we know the only thing that got us through that was our faith and our trust in God, do you know how strong you're going to be as a Christian? And we also forget, when God sees us down here from heaven, He sees us completely differently than we see us. For us, this life is it in our minds, you know, as we're living our lives. We're thinking we have to get it right or everything's ruined and we're never going to, you know, everything is life or death here. But God sees it and He says, you know, you're going to do this and you might mess up, but that's okay. Because I got a crown for you in heaven and I got a mansion for you in heaven and I'm here to help you. And when you get here, we can talk about it. And God has an endless amount of time. We just can't comprehend that, and that's why it's hard sometimes for us. So sometimes God sends people to us to help us, but other times, we are the people He's trying to send. Being able to look through your fear to see the other side is not easy, and it's definitely not natural. When we are afraid of something and we think something is threatening our well-being or our comfort, we run from it. That's our natural instinct. We do not run into fear, most of us. Now, The difference is like going into a haunted house or something. You know that that's not real. When you're faced with real fear and real decisions that could lead you to destruction, or if you make the right decisions could lead you to glory, that's when it gets tough, and that's when we run from those hard decisions, because honestly, if we try to make those decisions on our own, then we will fail. And that's what's scary, because you have to trust so hard. It doesn't come naturally, but it is very necessary. And in this case of Ananias and Saul, if Ananias had not gone to Saul like God told him to, the story would have been very different. I think God would have found someone else to go to Saul. He has no short supply of willing participants, willing servants. And who knows, if we want to make this our own story, we want to add a little bit, think about it. Maybe he asked to go heal before he got to Ananias, and they said no. Maybe God was trying to give a couple other people a chance to be in on this amazing miracle, and they said no because they were afraid. It doesn't say that in the Bible, but I'm trying to make a point. If you say no to God, he'll ask the next person, because he wants you to succeed, and he wants you to have happiness and glory and fulfillment on this earth, but it's your decision. That's your decision to make. If you say no, he's not going to force you into it, but he will get the job done. So I don't necessarily think that Saul would have been stuck in his position, because Saul as Paul is such an important figure in the Bible and in our lives still. Saul had a calling on his life that God was not going to let him go for anything, and if Ananias had said no, he would have picked someone else to help. But the bottom line is, Ananias did what was required of him, and he got the privilege of having his name associated with God's conversion of Saul into Paul. Ananias is in this story for a reason, because he said yes to God. That's valued by God. If you say yes to God, he doesn't forget. Especially when it's a hard yes to say. We're still talking about Ananias today. Of course, we're still talking about Paul and Saul, because he did a lot more stuff after this. But Ananias, he could have easily been forgotten. He's not in the Bible as much as Saul is, Paul. But because he said yes to God, and because he did what was required of him, we still remember him. Doing what God asks of you will always end better than giving in to fear. So, we're supposed to fear not, as the Bible says. I think 365 times. Push through your fear, because you will still feel it. I think that's what we miss out on. If God tells you to do something, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. That doesn't mean you're not going to feel afraid to do it. It does mean, though, that he will open the doors for you to step out in faith and succeed. Do your part to help those God lays on your heart to help, because one day you may be a Saul that needs an Ananias to help you out of the darkness. When we flip it like that and we think, what if I said no and I was supposed to do this to help somebody else? What happened to them? You missed an opportunity, and you may have missed their window of when they would have accepted your words about God. God has perfect timing, and when he's asking you to do something, he means right then, because he's like, this is the time. When we think about us needing help, that's easier to think about, because at least for me, because I need a lot of help most of the time. And most of the time I don't feel qualified to help others. And that's the thing. None of us really are qualified to help others in that way. The only thing that makes us qualified is saying yes to God. Saying yes to God, reading our Bible, praying, getting closer to God so that He can talk to us, because He will talk to you. It might not be in a flash of light that blinds you with a loud booming voice, but when you get close to God, you can decipher those thoughts in your head that are from the devil, that are from you, and that are from God. And it takes time, and it's not easy. But it's that growth that makes us who we are. And it's that growth that only comes from God and only comes from saying yes and stepping out in faith, even when we're terrified to do it. I guess that's all I have for you tonight, but I don't know where my dad is, and I don't know how to finish the service.